There's a psychological weapon being used against you in every relationship. The man who masters it controls everything. Most men never see it. They confuse it for love, for loyalty, for passion. But here's the brutal truth. Obsession isn't weakness. Obsession is power. And whoever controls the obsession controls the relationship. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover why the partner who cares less always wins, how psychological obsession creates invisible chains of power, and 5 strategic ways to flip this dynamic in your favor. Ignore this, and you'll keep giving away control. In relationships, at work, even in your social circles. But here's what makes this knowledge dangerous. Once you see how obsession equals power, you'll never look at relationships the same way again. Right now, in every relationship, there's a hidden war. And the side with less obsession always holds the high ground. Research from psychological science analyzing 3,400 couples proved it. The partner who cares less controls 68% of relationship decision-making. They're not better looking. They're not stronger. They just understand a law of dark psychology. Emotional imbalance creates leverage. Have you ever felt more anxious, more desperate, more invested than your partner? If so, you weren't in love. You were in submission. But here's the hidden danger. When you obsess, you turn your phone into a leash. Every message becomes a chain. You lose the ability to act with authority because your emotions are already captured. Think about what happens neurologically when you're obsessed. Your brain releases dopamine every time you get validation from that person. But here's the trap. Dopamine isn't a reward chemical. It's an anticipation chemical. Neuroscience research from Stanford shows that the anticipation of reward creates more powerful behavioral conditioning than the reward itself. This is why slot machines are addictive. This is why obsessed men check their phones every 5 minutes. Your brain has literally been hijacked by the same mechanism that creates gambling addiction. And she didn't even need to understand neuroscience to trap you. Robert Greene warned in The Art of Seduction, create a need, stir anxiety, and make yourself the object that will satisfy it. That's not romance. That's psychological warfare. And most men lose before the first shot is fired. The first law of obsession is simple. Whoever cares less has more power. The Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that attachment anxiety increases compliance by 47%. Translation: the more afraid you are of losing someone, the more you obey. Weak. Example: you cancel plans, answer instantly, and apologize when you did nothing wrong. Strategic example: she checks if you're free, adjusts her time around your mission, and works to stay in your good graces. This principle doesn't just apply to romance. Look at your workplace. The employee who's desperate to keep his job accepts every unreasonable demand. The employee who has multiple offers and options. He negotiates from strength. But here's where men make their fatal mistake. Most believe that more commitment equals more security. Wrong. Scarcity creates value. Abundance breeds contempt. Medieval kings understood this instinctively. They maintained multiple wives, multiple heirs, multiple alliances. Why? Because no single person could leverage emotional dependency against them. They engineered obsession in others while remaining strategically detached. Nietzsche put it bluntly. In revenge and in love, woman is more barbarous than man. What he meant: once someone realizes they hold leverage, compassion disappears. Strategy takes over. When someone is obsessed with you, they've given you a weapon they cannot reclaim. Because obsession means their mood, confidence, and happiness now depend on you. Studies in Social Psychological Review showed that controlled scarcity increases perceived value by 2.3 times in romantic contexts. The less available you are, the more magnetic you become. Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, and crush him. In relationships, scarcity is the bait. It makes others chase, not because of who you are, but because of what they fear losing. Here's how strategic scarcity works in practice. Phase 1. Initial presence. You show high value, high standards, high engagement. Phase 2. Strategic withdrawal. You become less available without explanation. Phase 3. Psychological hunger. They start questioning, seeking, chasing validation. Phase 4. Controlled return. You reappear on your terms, and they're grateful. Most men do this backwards. They start scarce and become abundant. Strategic men stay scarce even after commitment. Steve Jobs weaponized this perfectly. Apple didn't just sell technology. They engineered obsession through scarcity launches, ritualized events, and symbolic branding. Customers weren't just buying. They were surrendering. Every iPhone launch was calculated scarcity, limited supply, long lines, waiting lists. What did this create? Obsessive desire. People camped outside stores not because the phone was objectively better, but because their psychology was captured. You can engineer the same dynamic. Your time becomes the iPhone launch. Your attention becomes the limited edition. Your approval becomes the waiting list. Think back. In your last relationship, who cared less? Who had more power? Comment below. And if you value knowing the psychology that most men will never learn, subscribe. Because this channel reveals the forbidden strategies. Power attracts responsibility. When someone is obsessed with you, they hand you control, but also their emotional dependence. Attachment theory calls this the relational burden, the stress of carrying someone else's emotional stability. Weak men collapse under this pressure, becoming caretakers instead of leaders. Strategic men recognize the burden, manage it, but never lose sight of their mission. Here's what most men don't understand about being the object of obsession. It creates a psychological trap. The woman becomes so emotionally dependent that you start feeling responsible for her happiness. Her mood becomes your problem. Her anxiety becomes your burden. And here's the dangerous part. Weak men mistake this burden for love. They think being needed equals being valued. Strategic men recognize it as psychological entanglement, and they maintain boundaries even when managing obsession. Machiavelli warned about this in The Prince. Men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries, but of more serious ones they cannot. Applied to relationships, either inspire genuine respect through strength or inspire obsession through scarcity, but never get trapped in the middle where you're responsible without authority. If you're obsessed right now, you're in danger. Here's how to break it. Step 1. Awareness. Admitting obsession is surrender. Write down every behavior that signals dependence: instant replies, canceled plans, anxiety when they're distant. Step 2. Withdrawal. Pull back strategically. Fewer instant replies. More focus on yourself. This isn't punishment. This is reclaiming your psychological center. Step 3. Reframe. Rebuild value through independence, mission, and standards. The obsessed man has no mission except her. The strategic man has a mission she's lucky to join. Weak. You drop everything when she calls. Strategic. You answer when it fits your frame and she adapts to you. Here's the 30-day detachment protocol. Week 1. Delay all responses by 2 to 3 hours minimum. Rebuild your independent social circle. Week 2. Introduce new activities she's not part of. Create mystery about your time. Week 3. Reduce emotional availability. Stop being her therapist. Redirect deep conversations. Week 4. Reintroduce presence on your terms. She should feel like she's earning back access, not entitled to it. Watch what happens. The obsession begins to reverse. She starts chasing validation instead of dispensing it. The rarest and most destructive dynamic is mutual obsession. Studies on high-investment couples show they experience the highest emotional highs and the highest breakup rates. Why? Because when both are obsessed, each holds the other's emotional leash. Every fight becomes a battle for dominance. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both." In relationships, that means never reveal the full extent of your emotional investment. Think Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. Mutual obsession turned into a constant media war. What began as a passion became a battlefield of leverage and revenge. Kanye's public breakdowns, obsession without control. Kim's strategic silence, controlled detachment that reclaimed power. The lesson: the moment you break frame publicly, you've lost. Mutual obsession creates what psychologists call anxious attachment. Both people are desperately monitoring the other's emotional state. Both are terrified of abandonment. Both use manipulation to maintain control. The result? Emotional exhaustion, constant drama, and inevitable collapse. The healthiest power dynamic isn't equal obsession. It's a balanced value plus independent sovereignty. You care deeply, but you could walk away without destruction. That's a strength. Freud noted that obsessional love often masks deeper insecurity, the need to control what we fear losing. Strategic men reverse this. They let others project insecurity onto them, creating dependency while remaining internally detached. Weak, constantly needing reassurance. Do you still love me? Are we okay? Did I do something wrong? Strategic, calm detachment, which paradoxically makes the other person chase reassurance. Freud called this repetition compulsion, the psychological tendency to recreate unresolved childhood dynamics. Most obsessed adults are unconsciously trying to win the approval they never got from a parent. Strategic men recognize this pattern in others and use it. When you identify someone with deep approval-seeking patterns, you become the father figure they're trying to please. Your scarcity triggers their childhood wound. Your approval becomes their psychological drug. This is powerful. This is dangerous. Use it with awareness, not cruelty. The mind obsessed is the mind enslaved. The man who creates obsession rules. So here's the truth. In modern relationships, obsession is the currency of power. Whoever cares less controls more. Whoever creates scarcity multiplies value. Whoever inspires obsession gains leverage. This isn't cruelty, it's awareness. Relationships are not equal, they are hierarchies. And the obsessed always kneel beneath the one they crave. Nietzsche wrote about the will to power as the fundamental human drive. In relationships, this will express itself through emotional dominance. The question isn't whether power dynamics exist. They always do. The question is, will you be conscious of them, or will you be their victim? So ask yourself, who's obsessed in your life? Who truly holds the frame? And are you willing to reclaim power, even if it shakes the foundation? Have you been the obsessed or the obsession? Which position gave you more happiness, and which gave you more power? Comment below. If this opened your eyes, share it with a man losing ground in his relationship. Join the few who understand dark psychology and strategic power. Subscribe and stay untouchable. Remember, in relationships, obsession equals power. The only question is, are you controlling it or being controlled by it?